Good afternoon, dear students. I hope you are safe and sound in the quarantine period. Today's our lesson is from testing and assessment, and it is devoted to how to assess and test listening skills. So we have named our today's lesson as Assessing Listening Skills, Purposes and Techniques. Let's learn about it. And we have put three main goals in today's lesson. The first one, the nature of listening. Here we talk about the characteristic features of listening skills. And then comes things that make listening difficult, certain problems which comes from listening. Then the third plan is test formats and types of listening. Once, otherwise all said. There was a noble who lived in oak. The more he heard, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Oh, if man were all like that wise bird. This beautiful poem was written by Ogden Nash. Here the author wanted to say that we have to just listen more and more and speak less in order to be a wise man, in order to study and to learn more things. So, what is the listening itself, dear students? Listening is a two-stage process involving, in the first instance, the extraction of a basic information followed by the use of that language for a communicative purpose. Dear students, in order to know more about listening in general, let's watch a video that was presented by British Council.
Many people are confused about the difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is one of the traditional five senses and simply involves the ability to hear sounds through the ear. It doesn't matter whether we understand the sounds or not. But listening, on the other hand, is all about making sense of what we've heard. And our brains carry out a whole range of activities in order to do this. Firstly, our brains decide whether the sounds reaching our ears are the sounds of language. We do this by trying to match the sounds we're hearing with words we already know.
Yes, it is true, students.
Then we group them together into phrases, which helps us to clarify in our minds what the topic is that we're hearing about.
Yes, really true.
Finally, we make connections between what we think we've just heard with our pre-existing knowledge of the topic, based on our knowledge of the world. This way, we develop an understanding of the overall message. So, there's a lot going on in our brains when we listen to something. And although listening is often called a receptive skill, it's certainly not a passive one. A good listening assessment should try to copy the real-life use of the language as closely as possible. For example, there'd be little point in trying to assess someone's ability to extract factual information from an announcement at a train station if the listening task itself didn't resemble train station announcements. Lots of different tasks are used in listening tests. Sometimes, test takers are asked to pick out a word from several that sound alike, or to recognize the correct grammatical tense or words connecting sentences like however or consequently. Often, the meaning of unknown words has to be deduced from context. They might be asked to listen to something and identify the main ideas to get a general understanding of what it's about, which
Yes,
might
it's
lead
true.
to being asked to summarize the whole topic, either in writing or speech. They can also be asked to listen for specific information. Sometimes the task means that they have to make more subtle choices and work out what the speaker's attitude is to the topic? By inferring or deducing what the speaker really means when it isn't clearly stated. All these tasks can be done in different ways. For example, test takers might listen to someone reading something aloud live, or they might listen to an audio recording playing through speakers or headphones. Another option is to listen to a simulated live discussion or talk either on video or via a computer. Test takers might be asked to answer questions, either by choosing the best response from a number of responses, as in multiple choice tests, or in writing, either with a single word or short answer, or by writing a longer response. Of course, in the end, all these tasks have to be given marks or scores. So, it's important to decide beforehand how questions are going to be marked, and to make sure the test takers understand how their tests will be scored. One of the things that has to be decided in advance is whether each response should be given a single mark, or if some should be given more than one mark, because the answer is more difficult. This is called weighting. Another important decision is whether some marks should be given if an answer is partly correct, but not totally. This is called giving partial credit. If the listening tasks require written responses, we have to decide if grammar, spelling, and punctuation mistakes should be penalized. We also have to make sure that the number of possible correct answers to open-ended questions is limited, so that marking is easy and fair to all test takers. So, to create a useful listening test, we need to think about all these things, while at the same time making sure that the test taker's listening ability is being assessed in a meaningful way. Getting all this right isn't easy, and that's why listening is often said to be the most difficult skill to test. But it's also the most widely used skill. Since we can't have any communication without understanding, so it's certainly a very important skill to test.
Great, dear students. Now let's continue our today's lesson. So we have learned very useful information about how to assess and test listening. Now let's go on through the features of listening, as it is the first plan. So here we have to say that there are 5 and 4 test features of listening. They are the active, time constraint, transitory, oral one. The first one, the listener has to remark the speaker's intended meaning. In the time constraint, however, the input is not under the control of the listener. However, in the transitory one, next to refer back to, the listener here has to carry forward a recall of what has been said in his or her mind. In oral one, the input here not goes under the one. It contains features which reflect the way speech is produced. So, dear students, what kind of things makes the listening difficult? We know that some of you may answer that it would be the noise or the atmosphere, that you are just listening that track, that video. But here's some good tips that helps us to know about what things makes us like to listen the things more difficult. They are phonological modifications, clustering, reduced forms, it means redundancy, colloquial speech and accents, prosodic features, speech rate, performance variables, discourse structures. So what is the just phonological modification? It would be highly variable. The forms taken by phonemes and words vary greatly from citation forms. There is nothing like the standardized spelling system of reading. They depend on gender, age, shape and size of vocal tract. What is clustering? Spoken language is chunked into phrases and clauses, and it means this is a clustering. Now, what is reduced forms and redundancy? Reduced forms can be example in reduced forms like phonological, morphological contractions like I will, syntactical, for example, elliptical forms like when will you be back? Tomorrow maybe. I will be back tomorrow, it should be. Pragmatic, mom, phone. So it should be, oh mother or mommy, the phone is calling. And redundancy, rephrasings, repetitions, elaborations, insertions can be example to it. Accents and colloquial speech, it is the next thing that makes listening difficult. It would be standardized like standard Great British, like Great Britain, like standard USA, Australian, New Zealand accents can be can just oppose difficulty to listen to the listeners. And Altu accent also can contribute to it. What is the speech rate? In general, older people have a slow speech. Males tend to speak slightly faster than females. Or the next comes the effect of listen just language 1, like native language, on language 2, or it would be vice versa. Like the second language speaking rate is language just 1 dependent. Types of classroom listening skills. It should be reactive, intensive, responsive, selective, extensive, and interactive. Reactive can be you will listen and repeat. Intensive can be listen for specific sounds, discourse markers, intonation patterns. Responsive can be listen and respond briefly. Into the selective types of listening, you should have to listen for particular items in a longer stretch of discourse. In an extensive one, listen for global comprehension. Interactive one, authentic communication, listening as part of discussion, conversation, debate can be the good examples of this type. So, this is the intensive listening samples. For example, I will read the first one. For example, students here, I talked on the phone for hours. Students read, I talked on the phone for hours, or I talk on the phone for hours. So the students should match, should like tick as a right answer A. So let's do the second one yourself, dear students. Responsive listening samples. For example, so in about 30 minutes. Yes, I did. About 30 minutes? About $30? So the question was like, how long did it take you to get there? So the 4 answers could be just like the choice for the questions, and you should answer and you should tick only one of them. The second one you should do independently, dear students. This is an information transfer, single picture cued, verbal multiple choice. Here the students can just make their choice of the test by picture cued questions. Tasks format. The different kind of tasks format. The first one, we know that this is a multiple matching. Multiple choice can be dictation. This is very popular task format. And the next comes open-ended comprehension questions, gap filling, note taking, written response, true false, map labeling. These are very famous task formats which can come to our listening tasks. And this is just organized. This is like this would be done by just professional test takers. And here is the given Cambridge English just test format. This is a good example of it, because we know that it comes it starts from A1 and it ends to C2 level. We know it, and it's very popular all over the world, and this is called CFR, and we know the levels of it and which one means what. So I just also prepared for you some questions according to our today's lesson. If everything is clear, you may answer to the following questions. So I will read the first one. What instructions are given to test takers? The second one. What are the test takers required to do? Are you copying with me? Are you writing all the just questions in order to answer it correctly? Okay. Great, dear students. The third one. Do you think this is a suitable and appropriate task for the level of the students taking this exam? The first one. What skills does the task assess? The fifth one. What can the test taker find difficult in the task? The sixth one. Does the test taker need to have any background knowledge to complete the task? This is a very great and interesting question. Do you think does the test taker need to have any background knowledge to complete the task? Good answer. I hope you will find good answers for these questions and send it back to my private chat. Okay, great, into the Moodle platform. Now let's review some of the famous writers' test notes. So what are the strengths of your listening skills? Okay, the next question is, what are the weaknesses of your listening skills? Have you written down all 2 questions? Great, dear students. And I also, at the end of our lesson, I have prepared for you some good and useful glossary, useful just vocabulary according to our today's lesson, that is devoted to how to assess and test listening. So the first one is bottom up. It describes the process that builds smaller units into larger ones. So this one, syllables into words or words into phrases. The next comes top down. Strictly speaking, describes a view of listening as a process that uses larger units in order to identify smaller ones. Word level information to recognize phonemes. And the next one is input. Input is the speech that reaches a listener's ear. Sometimes assumed to be acoustic in form, sometimes assumed to have been analyzed by the listener into phonemes. Reduction. What is reduction? Reduction is the way in which words may become reduced in length and reshaped if they do not have a prominent role or intonation group. So another one is phoneme variation. This is the way in which the sounds of a language vary according to the sounds that join them, the type of speech, and the speaker. Trunks, shame, semantic recording, elision comes the next glossary. Interactive listening comes as a next glossary, which is very good to learn. Interactive listening is a situation where a listener has to respond to the speaker. What is the working memory then? It is the component of memory which holds short-term information and works upon it, limited in how much it can hold and therefore how much attention can be allocated to a task. Extensive listening. What is extensive listening? as we have mentioned about, this is a preliminary hearing of a recording to identify the main points of the listening. So, thank you for your attention, dear students. Now it is the time to end our today's lesson about how to assess and test listening. I hope you have found and gained more information, more useful information about this theme. Be prepared well to the questions and to the task which I have given you. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.